بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سلام الله عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته Shaykh Yasir, السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
It's been quite some time. It's been a few weeks since we've been together.
Yeah, subhanallah. We missed you, Allah.
Wallahi, I miss you too, but I see there's like this special nur, this light that's emanating from you. Where were you, Shaykh Yasir? What have you been doing?
Allah has been so kind and generous to invite us to Al-Haramain Al-Sharifain,
Allahu Akbar.
to visit Al-Habib sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and to have the opportunity to do the Umrah.
Allah.
Bifadlillah, and then spent a few days in Dawlat Al-Uthmaniyin.
Oh, you're in Istanbul.
Istanbul, no, alhamdulillah.
Dunya.
Yeah, no, there's contention, but you gotta be careful. Don't be too political now. الدنيا معروفة مصر. But alhamdulillah, no, it was a really, really nourishing, blessed trip. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gift us all many, many visits to the sacred.
I mean, Shaykh Yasir, you spent that time in Medina, and when we were there, it's so beautiful to see so many lovers of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi to go there to visit him alayhi salam, to pray in his masjid. Did you happen to do the visitation of the Prophet alayhi salam like right after Jum'ah prayer? Were you there for Jum'ah?
I was there for one Jum'ah, but I did not do visitation after Jum'ah, no.
Oh, it's an experience that everyone who's listening, you have to do, because it is such an enormous crowd of lovers of the Messenger of God, alayhi salatu wassalam, and you get in there and you're like, it's like Hajj, and the crowd is just pushing you in the ziyarah, which typically takes, 15 minutes or so. Now that they have this sort of path.
No, that's lucky if it's 15 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. But when you're there with that crowd, it's like 1 hour, but it's so beautiful because it's a procession.
Sure. Yeah.
To visit the King of Kings, Sayyidina Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam.
No, it was, Medina is just, it's pure beauty, pure Jamal. And, I usually with my group, like the Prophetic Living Group, we do majority Medina. Right. And then we kind of spend a few days, just a couple of days in Mecca. And I explained to the group, right now we're in need of a lot of Jamal. We're in need of a lot of beauty. Yeah. And the healing that happens, I think the spiritual clarity, the grounding, and just the time that you get to spend in the company of Al-Habib sallallahu alayhi wasallam, it's quality time. Because in the Haram al-Madani, you could really spend time in the masjid and spend all day if you want and do your wird, and there's no pressure to move and stuff of that nature. Whereas the Haram al-Makki, has its complexities, structural complexities right now. So you can't really sit there and enjoy the Kaaba. But regardless, Mecca is Jalal.
Yeah.
You feel the strength, the power, the quickness, the intensity. But alhamdulillah, regardless, there's Shaykh Mukhtar always says, Jalilun fi jamalihi wa jamilun fi jalalihi.
Lesson for all of us to learn.
Majestic in his beauty and beautiful in his majesty.
Allahu Akbar. Shaykh Yasir, whenever I'm in Medina and when I'm, in the proximity of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi, I feel like all my anxieties go away. Everything's okay. There's no problems. Like, yay.
Well, Sadaqt. It's amazing. Habib, what's amazing is the past couple of years, I've been taking a lot of kids with us on the trip. And so, we make it very family forward, kids heavy. And I'll tell you something. It's one of the most nourishing and motivating and inspiring experiences is to see the children and how they're impacted by Al-Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the anwar of Al-Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I mean, kids who their parents would say, "Is this my kid?" Because the children are so close to the fitrah, and they're still so pure in ways that we're not. And when they're close to that, so the purest source, the purest nectar of beauty, of mercy, the way they feel it and experience it is profound, is truly profound. This year, wallahi, one of the boys, 10 years old, Zayn Habibi, there's two Zayns that just blew us away, each with their own unique qualities. But one of the Zayns, I'm not joking. He had 100 of us bawling,
Allah.
crying, weeping like little kids. Simple reflections about his love for the Prophet, for wanting to live. And then he said, I want to die in Medina. This is a 10-year-old
Allah.
who all he knows is video games and school, kalam, the stuff that kids do. And then he just tastes something in Medina, and he spoke about bullies, and he spoke about there's no, I just feel safe here, and I feel I've never been this happy. I just want to live and die here. And he said those words, and the way it struck us as a group, because it was so pure and sincere, it just, those moments, wallahi, there are moments that get etched in your psyche. That, so ilahi, نجني من كل ضيق بجاه المصطفى مولى الجميع وهب لي في المدينة قرارا ورزقا ثم دفنا في البقيع. That's the dua of the people of Medina.
Allah, Ameen, Ameen. It's interesting you're saying this, Shaykh Yasir, because I think a hadith, it's Marwi in al-Bukhari, where Sayyidah Aisha says that they used to have some animals in the house of the Prophet, ﷺ, and the narrator say there were chickens, and that were always like, running around and going crazy. But when the Prophet ﷺ would enter, they'd be still and calm. And so it's interesting you're saying Zayn, because we spent a few weeks in Medina al-Habib, my family and I, and my youngest son is Ahmed Zayn, and Ahmed Zayn is haraki. This guy wants to wrestle, he wants to fight, he wants to jump. Like, to get Ahmed Zayn to calm down is an impossibility. We entered the masjid of Sayyidina Nabi والسلام, and Ahmed Zayn became like this wali of Allah. Quiet, very reverent, praying non-stop sunan. Wallahi, Shaykh Yasir. And I didn't say anything. And I'm just looking at him, and with my son Muhammad and I, and of course Ali and Hassan, and I'm staring, and I'm like, what's going on with Ahmed Zayn? I'm like, this is amazing. And so the Prophet, his presence is just transformative.
Wallahi, it's actually beyond words. It must be experienced. And I advise myself and all of my brothers and sisters, my wife last year, we took our kids last year and with the group, and she, in the reflection session, she said, it's interesting when you're landing in Medina, there's nothing palpably in terms of like physical structures that you can identify. It's like when you're traveling across the world, you're like, oh, look at this amazing ocean or these amazing mountains or these amazing buildings, and you're usually traveling for the experience, for the cultural experience, for the entertainment experience, for rides, whatever the case is. Medina has none of those trappings, but it has the source of all beauty, of all joy, of all wonder. And so the fact that these children, they're going to Medina, and even the kids themselves, they'll talk about this. They'll say, like, in Medina, the attraction is being in the masjid next to the Prophet ﷺ. That's everything. There's no games, there's no entertainment, there's not even that, like, food is not that great in and around Medina. I mean, if you move outside, but the direct vicinity, the shopping is not that interesting. It's about Al-Habib. And so I advise, if any family that's listening really wants a rich, nourishing, holistic, familial experience, go spend time as hopefully being a guest of Al-Habib. And that's something that you have to be invited to,
absolutely.
Allah has to give you success in your planning, because when we plan our years, we think about certain vacations, and we kind of have our minds dead set on, well, I want to go to this vacation site, I want to go to this foreign country, I want to go to this destination. But you want to pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides your heart and your family's heart to find, because it has to be husband and wife, or both equally, like, we have to go to Medina and we have to visit. And when you see what it does to the children, you'll realize this is the only destination that I should
absolutely. So anyone that's listening out there, if you planned a 2-week European vacation and you wanted to go to Paris or you wanted to go to London, change that. Have a 2-week vacation, go on Airbnb.com and rent an apartment in Medina al-Munawwara, live amongst the locals, be amongst the locals. And as Shaykh Yasir said, it'll be an amazing experience. And one of the beautiful things for us, Shaykh Yasir, you probably experienced it, was, with the new Saudi direction, they allow you now to go places and spaces religiously, which we couldn't do before. It was you couldn't leave the confines of the haram. And if you did, they would try to, put you back in there. But now they're opening places. They're what's the word I'm looking for, Shaykh Yasir?
Refurbishing?
Refurbishing certain locations. And one of the places that I went to with my family, which was amazing masjid, not far from the haram of Sayyidina Nabi alayhi salam, is Masjid al-Dira.
Yeah.
And did you go there with a group?
I'm in by myself, not with a group.
Oh, so it's amazing. So actually, Sajjad, if you can look it up and bring up photos, or if you have, this is where the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alayhi, and let's scroll down and see if they have any other photos other than that. This is where the Prophet alayhi salatu salam, when he was on his way to Uhud, he stopped. Yeah, that's amazing. He stopped here. He took off his armor, alayhi salatu salam. He prayed Salat al-Asr until the Fajr of next day. And then he continued on to the Battle of Uhud and the Uhud battlefield. And it is an amazing space. Like you feel, Shaykh Yasir, the Muhammadan alayhi salam presence there, don't you?
Yes, 100%. Yeah. I mean, there's actually, in Medina, there's Masjid al-Dira, and then there are many, many sites that are integral to the life and the seerah of Al-Habib sallallahu alayhi wasallam before and after wars and certain battles and certain incidents that just kind of bring the full story to life in a way. So you can certainly, and you would need time to really experience everything. You would need a good 2-3 weeks to do the whole tour and see all those sites beyond the direct confines of the Masjid Nabawi. But may Allah gift us a deep attachment to everything Muhammadan, everything, every place, every space, every place where he placed his blessed foot, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and where he made sujood, and where he laughed and he cried, and may Allah just allow us to follow in his footsteps, both physically and metaphorically.
Ameen, ameen, ya Rabbi ya Kareem. Shaykh Yasir, we haven't talked in a long time, so I brought with me something special today.
Allahu Akbar, what's that?
You know what this is?
No,
this is my Ghost Sour Patch Red Berry energy drink. And I look at it, my goodness, there's 200 mgs of caffeine in this. So I think
why are you drinking energy drinks?
I shouldn't be drinking energy drinks, but for some reason, I just felt I needed a little pep in my step today. So I picked one up. And I actually love this brand. For anyone out there who's into fitness, they make an amazing protein. It's a Cinnabon flavor protein. And so I use it in my Ninja Creamy. Did I tell you about my Ninja Creamy?
You did.
I don't know about listen, protein ice cream, and the Ninja Creamy is like the Apple iPhone. It's like a game changer. So anyone who has a sweet tooth like me, I struggle. If I try to diet, I always need something sweet at night. So what I've been doing right now is I've been getting these proteins from Ghost, the cinnamon bun, and I put in my Ninja Creamy, and it makes like an ice cream. So I'm completely taken care of
What's
at night.
Ninja Creamy? I'm lost.
Yasir, can you look? Sajjad, can you look up the Ninja Creamy? We have to show Shaykh Yasir what the Ninja.
Take me once again. I was in Medina. And now I'm in Ninja Creamy.
We were in Medina al-Munawwara together, by Allah's rahmah. We had amazing moments there together. Ninja Cream, it's an ice cream. It makes ice cream. Like, so it's this machine.
Oh, okay. So it's a machine that makes it. Okay. So you keep on saying Ninja Creamy as if I'm supposed to know what that means.
I mean, everyone should know what the Ninja Creamy is. I'll just you see this? It makes blend things, and it makes like all these things, and so you can make protein ice creams. Wow. So the point being, what I'm trying to get at is I'm ready for a long conversation with you today because we haven't been together for so long.
Yes.
So I'll tell you where I was over the winter break. I went to RIS. I went to the RIS conference. MashaAllah, it was a very, very beautiful experience. I got to see Sheikh Mukhtar was there. It was very beautiful seeing him. And Sheikh Yahya Rodis was there. I spent some time with him. It was really, really wonderful, and many other speakers. And one thing I love about these conferences and RIS in particular, Sheikh Yasir, is the body of Muslims come together. So for people in the West, outside of the Haramain al-Sharifain, it's a very few places that you can be together in such a large audience and pray jama'ah with like 10,000 people. you know, and that was a very, very unique experience. And that was it was very beautiful, mashallah. So we were in Toronto, and we spent just maybe two or 3 days there, and subhanallah, everything went well, but there was a little few problems that sort of came up at RIS. I don't know if you heard. Shaykh Hamza Yusuf went to speak, and then people started to disrupt his speech, and someone even, I think, pulled the fire alarm during his speech. It was all over Twitter, and I'm going to just pull up this clip just to show you. I know you weren't there. One moment. Yeah, these are the. So this is the Shaykh Hamza.
So وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. If you trust.
Yeah. So these are people disrupting. Someone pulls the fire alarm and disrupts the speech, and then it lasts for a short period of time, and then Shaykh Hamza is back on stage and able to complete his speech. So, you know, I have a few things I want to say about this, and maybe, you know, if you have any points of view that you want to bring up. I know emotions are very high, as they should be, about the Palestinian issue, about what's happening in Gaza, as they should be. But I think it's completely wrong to do this at a conference. You can have your differences with Shaykh Hamza, you can have your differences with me, you can have your differences with whoever you want. But, you know, if someone's giving a lecture and then you go and you pull the fire alarm, or you start screaming at him or her in the middle of his or her lecture, is not the way to handle what those differences are. And a lot of the things here have people think that, you know, Shaykh Hamza is pro-normalization of relationships with the Arab world and Israel. And so that narrative has gotten very popular, rightfully or wrongfully so. And he's been criticized for it. Now, you know, ideally for me, let Shaykh Hamza speak. Or if Shaykh Hamza was to actually clarify what his positions were on this topic, I think it would be very, very helpful, because what I'm seeing on the internet is those for him and against him, is each one saying, no, it's very clear, he's for the normalization, and then other people saying, you're putting words in his mouth, he's not for this whatsoever. And so, you know, he's a religious leader, he's someone who is very popular with the Muslim pace, someone who's impacted my life in my younger years as well. What I would love is, you know, just come and clarify what your positions are, whatever they are. We can agree or disagree, so that at least the ambiguity is no longer in this particular narrative and situation. But if you had some comments and thoughts on this.
Yeah, no, I'm not super familiar with the particularities, but, you know, the general spirit that I hope would pervade is, there's no doubt that, you know, no one of us are perfect, and I'm certain, you know, لكل عالم هفوة ولكل جواد كبوة. Everyone has their potential mistakes, or whatever the case may be, and certainly there's room for accountability and discussion. But I echo the spirit of the necessity of creating genuine spaces of dialogue, because sometimes I think, especially in the day and age where we live in, and unfortunately it works both ways, you know. So you say very little, for example, about a topic, and it's then kind of colors everything that people perceive because of the nature of how internet works, and it just goes viral, or, you know, people silence is an indication of something, and speaking is an indication of something. So, you know, so meaning that there's a lot of room for people to have their own assumptions and presumptions about what is or what is not, where do you stand. And so it's upon all of us, you know, those who speak and those who don't, to actually be more proactive in articulating opinions and perspectives, but then also for the interlocutors to listen and hear and seek out clarity. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah says in the Quran, you know, إن جاءكم فاسق بنبأ فتبينوا. You know, we have a duty, a Quranic duty of tabayyun and tathabbut, to actually understand and clarify. And it's very okay at the end of the day, even after tabayyun and tathabbut, to say, well, I disagree. I actually think
Absolutely.
that person's position is wrong, or I agree, I think that position is right. But we have to be careful about al-haliqa. The Prophet ﷺ speaks about al-haliqa, that which eviscerates and uproots our connections and our relationships as brothers and sisters, because at the end of the day, we're all people of the Qibla, and we should have room to disagree, and at times even vehemently disagree,
Yeah.
while not corroding the core of our bonds and connections as brothers and sisters. And so I think protecting that environment is critical. And also, and perhaps this is a little bit deeper and more involved conversation, but how do you negotiate a scholar or a teacher that you may disagree with, like what's appropriate, what's inappropriate? Because we do believe as a tradition in the confines and the parameters of adab, of respect. It doesn't mean that people are above reproach and there shouldn't be accountability. No, there should always. That's a part of the asl, ad-dinu nasiha. Our Prophet says a religion is advice, and it's liman, to whom? Lillahi wa li rasulihi wa li ulil amr min muslimin. So nasiha is to everyone.
Yeah.
But there's also a method, a means, an approach that I think we also have to learn from our tradition. So it's not to dismiss the hurt, the anger, the pain. Obviously, you and I, we've been on this platform talking a lot about the Palestinian plight on our individual platforms we have in our khutbah in classes. The hurt and the pain is real. The anger is real. The devastation is real. But we have to think about what are the truly prophetic methods that are ultimately pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we want to see established in our midst.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, in this regards, Shaykh Yasir, as even I've discussed offline before, like, leaders of community, imams, imma, especially those that are widely in the public eye, people know very well, there is a bit of a responsibility to have clarity on certain topics, especially if they are causing a lot of fitna. The famous story of Sayyidina Nabi sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi, is it's related in Sahih al-Bukhari, walking with Sayyidatna Safiya. Some people see him, and he sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi goes back to clarify that he's walking with his wife, to remove the ambiguity, to remove the shaitan from running in the veins of those sahabis, those individuals that saw them. To take an approach of, I don't need to explain myself to you. Well, yeah, I think a lot of people, they don't, but when we're in positions of leaderships and positions of influence and positions of authority, even if you feel you don't need to explain yourself to someone, you can still take the high road to try to help avoid the fitna by explaining yourself. The Prophet ﷺ does not need to explain himself to anyone, but he still taught us the sunnah of doing so. And that requires a lot of humility. And so, my view, especially in cases like what's happening in Palestine on this issue, and there's been so much talk about this, is that if there was just direct clarity from the person that is being spoken about, in this case, Sheikh Hamza, is actually much healthier for him and healthier for the community than to leave it ambiguous. Now, people need to learn that we may differ, like you said. I mean, that's something. What I've realized? The ego of the human being, Sheikh Yasir, is so devastating and so challenging that you may differ with someone on, like, I like strawberries, they don't like strawberries, and they're ready to eradicate you off the face of the earth. Like, we're at that level that, like, you ever sit with someone and just say, I have a different opinion, and you see them turn red and angry just because of the fact that you don't agree with them? That's a major problem, and that's not healthy for anyone or for any community to move forward. So we can differ. The Sahaba differed. They differed on a lot of topics. The famous one, Sheikh Yasir, of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu arda, going to Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu arda and telling him we need to collect the Quran. He's not asking for something bad. He's asking for something beautiful.
I think what happens sometimes is, first off, the context and the culture of how we negotiate complicated or challenging or whatever it is topics, we have a very unhealthy culture about just discussing things in general. I think where I think where the real challenges comes in is that when people feel there's no room for disagreement here. Like, the consensus of the community has to be X method. So, for example, there should be no doubt or question that, for example, the plight of the Palestinian people is one of our brothers and sisters are being oppressed. They are being tyrannically dealt with by the Israeli regime, those that support, and then there are those who are complicit. And like there's a particular idea that for everyone is categorical. And I think there is merit to say there is no actual disagreement on what's happening to our brothers and sisters in Palestine. There is no, can you be on the side of like, oh, nothing's happening or it's okay? I don't think anyone in the Muslim community would say that this is not an outright just pure evil being exacted upon our brothers and sisters. Now, I think where things get dicey and the questions start to arise is methods and means and approaches and what is known as like a siyasa shar'iyya, like how do you actually negotiate this, and what is for the greater good, and how should you think practically, think politically, think in the realm of means and asbab, how to negotiate. Then that's where, and I think similar conversations have arose in multiple current events that you'll find real contentious debate on how people are thinking about the practical negotiation of an issue.
But so yes, it's not just current events. I think like if we look back to the Sahaba, Ridwanullahi alayhim, right, and after the killing of Sayyidina Uthman, like there was a major difference amongst the companions as to what to do in this circumstances. And so it's not like this is something new, having difference of opinions as to how to reach an objective should be something that we champion and discuss. The problem is that that discussion is not happening, that clarity is not being put forth. And that's where I say that we're adding fuel to the fire by constantly taking an attitude of, I don't need to explain myself to you. I'm just going to sit silent and let my defenders defend, and let the internet just, keep, the fires burning between each other.
I mean, I don't... I don't. So I think that would be something that needs to be verified, that is the approach that someone's taking, for example, that is their approach. I mean, I would agree that is not a good approach. But I think also individuals, when the context is so charged and wired, people operate in different ways in those environments. I think everyone should hold themselves accountable, for what is an appropriate action, what's pleasing to Allah. I think a tabayyun is critical. People have to clarify, whether it's clarifying that a piece of information is true, or that, like the Prophet ﷺ said, innaha safiya, this is safiya. And the companions were like, what are you talking about, Ya Rasulullah? We would never question you. But inna shaytana yajri min ibn adam majra dam, as you said, like shaitan runs through the veins of people. And so I have to clarify. But what I'm indicating as well is, so there's personal accountability on individuals where they may be in the society and the community, what position they may hold, and everyone needs to kind of factor that in for themselves between Allah and their relationship with Allah. But I also, the context that unfortunately we kind of exist within is so loud and can be chaotic.
Yeah, absolutely.
That it doesn't lend it's quick, like you go online and it's really an environment of with us or against us.
Yeah, absolutely.
The room for any conversation, because I know sometimes even people say, well, like there is no nuance, it's actually right and wrong. And I would say that at some level, yes, that is the case. It is like right or wrong. Like I said, like you're either against or for the Palestinian people, really. It's there's certain realities, just like, if you were present during the time of the Nazis, there's no like nuance. It's like what's happening to the Jews is a travesty and a evil that is unspeakable, and there's no like, there's no equivocation.
Yeah.
I think what happens now, especially because and this is why subhanAllah, the Prophet says al-fitnatu ashaddu min al-qatl. Fitna. And that's why it's al-haliqa, because when the fitna kicks in and is bred into the space, and we start to doubt each other and constantly questioning each other, and we create echo chambers, and echo chambers can be created on all sides, by the way. It can be on your little team, it can be like amongst your, you and your group, echo chambers can exist. And then, You don't hear what other people are saying. You're not really empathetic or sympathetic. You don't even want to appreciate what they're trying to say. And khalas, the judgments are categorical. I categorically opine that Moutasem is X. And I don't, or that, this activist is Y. Because it happens. It happens like, on the spectrum of like, okay, you have quietist, sympathetic shuyukh who are just X, or you have activists who've thrown the Sharia into the garbage and they don't care about anything but, pragmatism. And it's like, no, I think, I think this person cares about in their own idea what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, and they're trying to attain some pleasure of the divine. They may be thoroughly misguided, and they may be taking the steps that I believe personally are absolutely wrong, but doesn't put into question the entire essence and the integrity of the person. And so there is, our tradition has taught us that there is room for rich, complicated, and I've seen, you see some of the conversations between the ulama and the fuqaha and stuff historically about really complicated, even by the way, warfare. You see, for example, the position of Imam al-Shadhuli during the time of the Crusades and his very harsh critique. There is ulama. Listen to this, subhanAllah. Imam al-Shadhuli had very harsh opinions of ulama who were not taking a more proactive stance when it came to the Crusades. And him, alongside other ulama, were sitting literally in tents and reading Risal al-Qushayriya. And there were certain shuyukh that Imam al-Shadhuli did not actually want to deal with on a personal level because of how pained they were by their position. And the reconciliation, happened when? After the shuyukh died. Shaykh Imam al-Shadhuli died, and Shaykh so-and-so he went to the grave of Imam al-Shadhuli and he acknowledged, he's like, I was wrong, and it was a matter of Imam al-Shadhuli being like, I really so disagree with you on this. I'm not going to create some big fitna around it, but
but I can't interact with you.
But I'm really disappointed. And it was like directed to him. It was a message. He wasn't creating some big hoopla, and so there's much to be said, but I think it would behoove us all to employ what I would call prophetic nuance.
And I think it would behoove us all as people that are, in positions of leadership to learn how to talk to each other, learn how to make a phone call. I feel like most of the are just living in a vacuum by themselves and bouncing ideas by themselves and not willing to reach out, and so, if you've got an issue with someone, talk to them. So, overall, alhamdulillah, it was nice being in Toronto. It was nice being with that big body of believers outside of, this little thing.
I also heard the Masikna convention had huge numbers as well.
Oh, yeah, I heard that. Yeah, subhanAllah, I've never gone to Masikna. But I heard they had a very big numbers there as well.
I think the fact that the Muslims gather together in numbers, Toronto with RIS, mashallah, in mass, ICNA, all the different conferences, هذه نعمة. This is a blessing. And I think any attempt or effort to bring the Muslims together, needs to be praised and celebrated on those grounds. There's just something very special about the Muslimin gathering. So we also just have to pause and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have this ability to gather, that we can gather and we can just, choose, alhamdulillah, every year Pearls of Quran, it's on a slightly smaller scale, but, it's a beautiful gathering of believers all together to come together and through Al-Madina. I believe all these windows and opportunities for believers, because the Prophet ﷺ said, Yadullahi ma'al jama'ah. The aid and the support of Allah is with the group. So we this is a sacred truth in our tradition. When we're together, we are just better off.
So if there's a conference going on, go to the conference, and if there's a rally going on, go to the rallies. Get your kids in these spaces, and if you can spend 2 weeks in Al-Madina and Munawwara, take your kids to Al-Madina and Munawwara. Do so, inshallah. Shaykh Yasir, I don't know if you've noticed this, but there has been an internet basic blackout on Gaza. Before, when I used to open up Instagram, I used to always see so many videos about what's happening in Gaza, and then all of a sudden that went from like being up here to going like this.
I noticed that recently too.
And then they removed Sean King. Did you see that? He's like been, I think, officially banned, Sajjad, from like Instagram. He's like,
I don't have any familiar with Instagram, so. But I know X newly. No, that wasn't a judgment.
He's talking to me about scholars being, open with each other in discussion.
Well,
Instagram.
that was not a veiled judgment. انت بتعمل على Instagram.
Now you're asking a question that my mom will ask.
No, I don't really have. I genuinely don't have familiar, but I newly have since literally October 9th.
Right.
I joined X, and then because I was sitting with a group of guys, and they were telling me all this information, and I'm like, where are you guys getting this data from? Because my whole life I've only had Facebook, and then they're like, Facebook is just 10 years old. You got to get on X, previously Twitter. And then I got on, it was like information overload. Anything in Gaza. But I have noticed in the past couple of days or whatever that like even the suggested, what is called like the For You tab, it was 95% Gaza. Now it's like maybe 10-15% Gaza.
Yeah, so they've definitely done that. And just on X, I got on X recently as well too, and I tweeted one time at an organization, and they have since blocked me. And if they're listening, it'd be nice to unblock me. You didn't block people that said much worse than me, but we're just going to leave it at that. It's information overload definitely on X, but Instagram, you've been seeing these things happening. People are getting throttled. But the genocide is still happening. Just because we're not seeing it, we're not seeing the full realities of it, it's still happening. And there's this clip I want to show. The Palestinian people continually, Ahl Gaza, to this day are just teaching us Iman in Allah Azza wa Jal. And I saw this clip of this mother. She was sweeping the streets of her bombed out home, and her response to this cameraman, I don't know if you saw the Shaykh Yasir, when I asked Sajjad to bring it up, wallahi, as if she filled my heart with Iman. And I want to play this clip, Sajjad, if we can do so.
كل العالم اتفرج علينا، احنا بتفرج، احنا اشرف شعب في العالم، اقلها طفل فلسطيني بس واكبر حاكم عربي، بدناش حد يصورنا، احنا الله معانا، كل العالم مع اليهود لكن احنا الله معانا، كل ابواب انفتحت لبني صهيون وسكر الجبال الفلسطينيه، لكن باب الله معانا، النصر لنا، بدناش اي واحد يعطف علينا، معانا الله. الله قال في القرآن لنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين.
Well, Sheikh Yasir, like you see this woman, as this, you hear her reciting these ayat and saying Allah from a heart that is going through all of these challenges, but is still filled with Iman. And she's like shaking us. And, here we're watching what's happening, and we're getting shaken. Our faith is, starting to crumble here and there. Why is Allah allowing this? And then someone in the midst of the fire is saying, Allah.
No.
And we're like, Ya Allah.
Yes.
It's incredible, these people.
What strikes me about that clip is, and the word that just jumps out is izzah, dignity and honor. And the reason being is because, think of your own beloveds, your mother or your wife, who's holding a similar broom method. And it's a very personal thing, to be taking care of your personal space. It's not something that's meant to be or even desired to be exposed to the outside world. Not that there's anything shameful about it, not at all. It's a very honored, thing. But it's the idea here is that she's doing something. She's effectively in the middle of her personal space, taking care of her space, her children. And there's this camera, and there's something very invasive about that. Not to say that this person was trying to invade her space, but the fact that she had this honor is just oozing from her.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if lisanu haliha, like the lisanu haliha means that like what her essence is expressing is, you will never abase me. There's nothing you can't strip me of anything that will result in me being a lowly person.
Yeah.
So you can take my home, you take my family, you can take my kids, you can take my clothing, you can take everything, but I'll always be aziza. I'll always be a person of dignity, a person of honor, because Allah, as you mentioned, Allah. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah asks in this rhetorical almost dismissive. أَيَبْتَغُونَ عِنْدَهُمُ الْعِزَّةَ? Do they seek their honor with them? إِنَّ الْعِزَّةَ لِلَّهِ جَمِيعًا. All of honor, all of dignity belongs to Allah. We are Abdul Aziz. We are the servant of Al-Aziz, the possessor of all dignity and all honor. And that's why the more we surrender ourselves to Allah, and we remove from our hearts and minds any type of subservience to other than Allah, then we'll always live bi-izzah. That's why she can be holding a broom and wearing the clothing of her bait, her home, and to be in that vulnerable, innocent space. But like,
you see it, it comes through.
It's just palpable.
Yeah.
You just feel like, I don't want to, like, I would have haiba of being in her presence. I would be in awe. If I were in her presence, we would likely tremble from how dignified. Because when a person is infused with dignity and honor, you naturally tremble in their presence. It can be a saghir or a kabir, it doesn't matter. You just feel like, man, this person's plugged in differently.
Yeah, Shaykh Yasir, and about plugging in differently, I mean, where does that come from? The Iman is not an intellectual construct. It's an experiential reality. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi tells us, Al-Imanu ma waqara fil qalb. It's that thing that's infused in the heart. So like, you and I and the rest of the world, we're going about our day, and we want that sort of Iman that no matter what happens, we're with Allah. And so the only way that we can get it is through these spiritual practices. If we're spending most of our nights watching Netflix, watching HBO, or doing whatever it may be, we only have so many hours in the day. So if we're always consuming, we're going to be filled with that which we're consuming. And most of it is junk. It's like zina, stealing, lying, backbiting. And so my whole psycho-awareness becomes of those things, and I see the world through those things. But if I'm at home and I'm going to make sure for 1 hour a day I'm in the remembrance of God, I'm reading from the Quran al-Kareem, I'm sending prayers upon the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi, I'm consuming beautiful spiritual raw material that is then going to fill my heart and give me the opportunity to be like this woman. And we have to have the izzah back of our deen. You know what I do, Shaykh Yasir? I'll just tell you, then I'll give it to you. Like, my kids and I would go to the gym together. We go to the same MMA gym. And I make sure that we are at the gym at Maghrib time, because their class starts shortly before Maghrib time, because I want my kids to openly do salah with their father in front of the gym. Because I know it's uncomfortable to them. They've got their buddies in the gym, and the kids are very good at MMA, so when they get in there, they're like, but as we're praying, people are watching and they're seeing us. And initially, a few of my kids are like, Baba, can you please make the salah short? And I'm like, no. We are doing our salah, and we're doing it here for the whole world to see, because you have izzah, not in what you can do in that gym. It's through that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to go through these practices. But Shaykh Yasir, you were about to say something.
No, I when you were speaking, I actually sent you the clip, Habibna, if you want to pull it up. Because when you were speaking, it reminded me of this particular clip of one of the young people of Gaza who had just finished praying Fajr in Gaza. And like, his heart inspired him to deliver a message to the world. And this message is, and even if we pull it up,
we're pulling it out 1 second.
So I mean, it's in line with that spirit of, well, we need to learn the methods, the practices, the behaviors, the ideas that will cultivate those prophetic sensibilities and kind of live in that reality. And I think this is a perfect example of actions that cultivate those prophetic sensibilities.
Assalamu alaikum. It's January the 8th, 2024, live here from Gaza. Ya Allah, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. You have no idea how much happiness, how much peace someone feels when they pray Fajr in Jama'ah, in congregation, in the masjid. Fajr prayer is one of the 5 daily prayers that Muslims connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, where He invites us to His house. Wallahi, I swear to God, the feeling of successfully waking up every day and praying in congregation in the house of Allah is worth the whole world and everything that is in it.
Allahu Akbar.
No, keep on going.
And because I love you, because I care for you, please, I want you to try this. Try waking up before sunrise. Try to supplicate with your Lord. Ask Him to guide you. Ask Him to show you the right way. Ask Him to utilize you in the best way possible while you live this temporary life.
Yes.
Ask Him for guidance. He loves you. He created you. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Inshallah, later today we'll provide more updates on what is happening.
Incredible. This is someone in Gaza telling us to go pray Fajr.
I mean, I think what really moved me about that when actually a dear sister shared it on one of the groups that I'm on. May Allah bless her. You know, what moved me is that you just feel in his spirit and his voice this deep contentment to billah. Yeah. You know, I don't know what that buzzing sound is. I don't know if it's one of those drones, because you know they always have drone activity. People say like the sounds of Gaza now are either like bombs dropping or drones buzzing. And here you have a young man who went to the house of Allah, found and finds everything he needs ma'allah in the house of Allah, and and a genuine nasiha, advice of love and care to humanity. Connect to Allah, pray to Allah, respond to the call of Allah. Yeah. Hayya ala salah, hayya ala al-falah. Come to prayer, come to success. That's what the adhan is. And you notice that he, it's like these are the 5 prayers. Like he's talking to an international community. It's not just nasiha for Muslims. He's advising everyone, Muslims and non-Muslims. Like this is where your success is. This is where your connection to the divine, where you're nourished, you're healed, you're purified. And the profundity of that is that's accessible all the time for us.
Yeah.
By fadlillah. So I find this, if we want to understand the sir, the secret of these men, women, children of Gaza, it's in this. It's in salah. It's in sujood.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, where would we go other than to Allah Azza wa Jal? Peace and serenity is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Understanding and processing this world is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi. But Shaykh Yasir, what's so important, because I spoke to actually your brother Ahmed Fahmy, we're going to have more conversations about this, is that just like how we have physical routines to ensure that we get in shape.
Yeah.
Spiritual world, we have to keep with those routines. People say, "Oh, I tried my salah, I'm not getting peace." And no, 1 day, 2 days, no. You have to keep going, and we have to keep attempting, and it's a performance. Coming to salah and being ready for it, and being ready in the dhikr of Allah. Wallahi, the dhikr of Allah, the sada. I mean, it's enough that we have individuals in our history like Imam al-Ghazali, Sidi Ahmed ibn Ajiba, Imam al-Shadhuli, who have experienced these realities, but we have to put in our time, and everyone does. Look at that, the young Zayn that you spoke about in Medina al-Munawwara. That experience moved the hearts. So we want to constantly be moving that hearts in the direction. So actually, staying on the issue of Gaza, South Africa, subhanallah, South Africa finally, well, not finally, South Africa has been shining, but, at least in this terrible genocide, they're shining even more. At the World Court, South Africa accuses Israel of genocide in Gaza. And of course, the United States comes to their defense saying, oh, we don't believe in that. But there's an article here that I wanted to bring up, Shaykh Yasir, maybe some comments that you and I can have together. South Africa accused Israel on Thursday of carrying out a genocide in Gaza and demanded that the UN's top court order an emergency suspension of Israel's devastating military campaign in the Palestinian enclave, a military campaign that's being funded by the U.S. government. That's not in the article. That's just me talking. All of those missiles, all of those bombs, all of that ammo, the U.S. is sending it. And as U.S. citizens, we want the U.S. to stop giving aid to this state of Israel. You are killing innocent people. On the first of 2 days of the hearings at the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, South Africa said Israel's offensive, which has demolished much of the coastal enclave, killing more than 23,000 people, according to Gaza health authorities, aimed to bring about the destruction of the population of Gaza. The intent to destroy Gaza has been nurtured at the highest level of state. And this is evident from the way in which the military attack is being conducted. And then they had a lot of evidence showing what the soldiers are doing, what the soldiers have claimed they're going to do, what top individuals within the Israeli government, like Netanyahu himself, has publicly claimed he wants to do to the Palestinian people. And he has the audacity to come on TV the other day saying, "Oh, no, we're not trying to destroy Gaza. You've already destroyed Gaza. We're not trying to kill its people." And then I think it was, I don't have it in front of me, but it was, there was some Twitter account of one group. It was a Zionist group. I don't know if you saw this tweet, that if Israel wanted to perform a genocide in Gaza, it could. Did you see this tweet?
I mean, I've heard that line a lot. Yeah.
It was so disgusting and so vile that they eventually took it down. But this is how they think. MashaAllah, South Africa, may Allah bless you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide you all collectively to that which He loves. Shaykh Yasir, some comments on this?
No, I think, there's no doubt that South Africa is taking a stance of real honor and dignity, and it's from the history that country has been through. And Nelson Mandela said that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinian people, because it's the freedom of what's happening to the people of what happened to the people of South Africa is certainly an extension to what's happening to the people of Palestine and other places, and so there is a truth there that's very apparent, and the majority of the world sees and knows. And when you actually look at the meticulous documentation that the South Africans provided, like meticulous documentation, this is not some sensationalist propaganda document. No, it's a legal document with meticulous documentation, with quotes, because one thing that the Israeli regime has been very open, very transparent about its motivations, about its intent. It's you can find volumes of rhetoric that is deeply problematic. And so I think, and the interesting thing is that the only response is propaganda. The response to it is like, oh, this is all just a ploy. South Africa it's run by Hamas. South Africa is anti-Semitic. It's like, you can't just keep on employing the same tired propaganda tropes. There's a point in time where you actually have to speak truth to truth, fact to fact. There's something called accountability. It's like you sit in front of a court of law. Okay, you don't like these facts and this evidence. Well, speak to the evidence, but don't. So unfortunately, we live in a world where, the truth and the facts and the reality of things are proactively hidden, obscured, drowned out with noise and propaganda and yelling and shaming and bullying. And these tactics, they're so counter, civilization, the human civilization that should be rooted in prophetic traditions, the traditions of Moses and Jesus and Muhammad, and people of honor and dignity, and who speak the truth even if it's bitter. I don't know if you saw, there was one of the Knesset members, not one of the Arab ones, one of the Israeli. I don't know what his background is, but he spoke up and very forcefully. I saw a few of his clips, and it's and you think it's easy for him in that context where he's being so thoroughly attacked and assaulted for speaking up, but he's speaking the truth. What benefit is he gaining by speaking the truth in that moment and really going up the status quo and the trend of his own peer pressure? So I think what we find with this South Africa move is that what they're presenting are the facts.
Yeah.
It's data. It's backed by meticulous annotation. And I hope and pray that the people of the world, because very often you're also negotiating the public opinion, is that the people of the world appreciate when there's actual data being presented and facts, and it's not just stories and narratives and propaganda and shaming and blaming and bullying. And that's just that type of context does not result in harmony.
No, anyone in Israel who is actually trying to speak up to stop this war has, I don't know if you saw the videos, they've been stomped upon, they've been attacked, they've been beaten in the streets. It's crazy. And so for a Knesset member to be able to get up there and say something is incredible. But, at the end of the day, this is the Dajjalic satanic system. I mean, this happened during the time of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi, where the shaitan came in with Quraysh and they're trying to come up with ideas about what to do. Sayyidina Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, well, let's kill him, let's do this, and let's do that. This is all they know. And then they try to act through, they try to rebrand the concept of killing into, we're doing something noble because he's causing all this fitna in our community. The Palestinians just want to live, and you're trying to murder each one of them so you can take over that land completely. And look what's happening in Jenin in the West Bank. All of it. They're going there, raising the streets. They're destroying everything because it's a satanic system. And I want to actually bring our topic to something today. It's really interesting as I was just surfing the web. Satanism, this concept of openly worshiping the shaitan. I know it sounds crazy, but it's actually on the rise in the United States and in places and spaces around us. And there's this article that came up, and I'll tell you why, because I was on the internet and I came across this band from the UK. I don't even know how I did, called Sleep Token. There's a strange group of like demonic looking individuals who worship some demonic god, and they all come dressed to check. Can you bring up just some images of Sleep Token? You have to see this, Shaykh Yasir. It's crazy. And they invite people to their concerts to come worship with us, and they're apparently very popular. But just look at these images as to how these people are dressed. And they are attracting a lot of, what you would say normal looking individuals. Look at this. You just click on images on the Google there. That's a nightmare, isn't it, Shaykh Yasir? Like, like if you saw individuals dressed like that, you'd be like, what is going on? But to pay money and go and listen to these people is crazy enough. So these guys are getting real popular. And it brought me to this article that was in Christianity Today. What a satanic statue says about American religion. This is really interesting. What happened in Iowa. Here he goes. He's referring, of course, to the public display of, I don't even know how to pronounce this, Baphomet. This devilish looking character at the Iowa State Capitol by the local satanic temple. This erupted into the public debate in response to a social media post by Representative John Dunwell, an ordained pastor in the Christian and Missionary Alliance. Dunwell argued that he, like most Iowans, find the figure to be repellent and offensive, but that the state allowed it to be placed there on the grounds of government neutrality on religion and First Amendment rights. The state did insist, he said, that the group not use an actual goat's head. So I don't know if many people actually know what happened. This is in the Iowa State Capitol, right? A state in the United States of America. They allowed this satanic group to put an idol. There's an article here that actually shows it. Let me just pull out that article. It's oh, maybe I don't. Okay, is it up there? Yeah. Well, no, this is not it. This is actually something else, but they had an idol. Let me actually just, Sajjad, if you could look up Baphomet, the name there, I'll text it to you. Actually, here it is. I found it. Let me send this to you, Sajjad, while we're together, so you can bring up this article. Nope, that's not. No, that's not it. We're not finding it right now. Hold on one second. See, this is where everyone has to be patient with us as we're going through. Here it is. Oh, we just sent it over. We're going to open it up, and so everyone can see what's happening in Iowa. And here it is. So that's the statue that has been raised in Iowa, and it's about devil worship. And basically, it's a ram's head covered with mirrors on a mannequin cloaked in red clothing. You know, we're going to really relish the opportunity to be represented in public forum. We don't have a church on every street corner. This is Satanist. And you know, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us in the Quran al-Kareem, Shaykh Yasir? Alam a'had ilaykum ya bani Adam? La ta'budu. And you know, growing up, probably like you, this concept of Satanism and people, you know, giving their bay'ah, their allegiance to the devil. Like we had one or two kids in the school that were like, you know, Satanists, but now it's something that is now openly in public. And so my question is very simple. If you're going to worship Satan, why don't you worship the creator? Why don't you worship God so you acknowledge that Satan exists? You know?
Well, listen, I mean, so there's, endless things to say, but I would just indicate here that there is the kind of the more profane and apparent representation, but then there is the endlessly sanitized version of Satanism, and you see that all throughout pop culture.
Yep.
So a lot of singers and pop stars and performers who proactively and openly in a more quote-unquote sanitized form and fashion engage in Satanism and the symbols. You know, my wife showed me this collage of musical artists throughout the past decades, and all of them without fail have this picture or like of an album cover with one eye, with like covering one eye. And it's like, it's actually very damning. It's wow, all of them have the same exact. And you can probably, Sajjad can just search and find like collage one-eyed, like you'll find it. It's all the major stars, all the pop stars, all the sanitized representations. And you have big, huge stars who talk about, you know, how they take on a new personality, like they become possessed before they go on stage, and that at home they're actually pretty shy and whatever, but then they have this like fierce, aggressive, hypersexualized disposition that comes about. So they talk about being almost proactively, they talk about being possessed. And so subhanallah, you know, the shaitan, when he asked Allah, he said to God, he said, فَأَنظِرْنِي إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ.
Is this what you're referring to?
Yeah, so some like one of these, like my wife showed me them, was like a huge collage. It's like similar to this one on the one on the right here, but it's like something like that, where it's all of them. It's without fail, and it's the biggest stars that you can think of. The names that escape me and don't, but you'll find something very eerie. It's like, why are they all the same exact thing? And then why do you walk into a, you know, I'll get back to the point I was making about shaitan, but why do you walk into a department store and then the songs that are being sung, and you hear them, are the most demonic,
terrible
ones, where you have a singer who literally the music video is of him with Satan doing very debaucherous acts.
Yeah.
And this is a guy who like carries blood in his shoes and whatever, and engages in the most sick, sadistic, debaucherous things. And it's art, and it's innocent fun. And then our children are listening to this stuff, and it's subhanallah. I mean, it's really, really unsettling things. But you know, shaitan committed himself to this, because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cursed him for not obeying, and then Satan asked, فَأَنظِرْنِي إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ, you know, keep me until the day they are resurrected. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّكَ مِنَ الْمُنظَرِينَ, right? You will remain, meaning that shaitan will remain as a test. And Satan's commitment was the following. لأحتنكن ذريتهم لأقعدن لهم صراطك المستقيم لأغوينهم. Right? So all of these are what is Satan, his promise, his like, and this lam is lamut tawkid, like I'm going to certainly do the following. I'm going to لأحتنكنهم means I'm going to place a bridle in their mouths, like a horse bridle. I pull them right, they go right, I go left. لأغوينهم, I'm going to dissuade them and deceive them. لأقعدن لهم صراطك المستقيم, I'm going to sit down on the straight path. So Shaitan is thoroughly invested in making certain that people, stay anywhere away from the obedience to God. That's his mission. He wants people to be cursed like him, because he's cursed. He wants people to be cursed like him. So people do make deals with the devil. And there's also pop stars that have spoken about this openly.
Yeah.
And it comes in ways that it's not as if Satan appears in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But there are deals. There are pop stars who've spoken about selling their souls.
Yeah.
Do this, do that, have this, right? And I will guarantee you. And there's shayateen, by the way. Satan comes in the form of the jinn, but also in the human. That's why min al-jinnati wan-nas. We seek refuge in shaitan from the jinn version and from the human version. So you'll have human satans who come and have you strike a deal with the devil. Yeah. Whether you consciously know that this is a deal with the devil, or it's just you're being told, if you sell this part of yourself, your soul, whatever, your values, your morals, I will guarantee you fame, success, money.
Yeah.
And so people, it's like the dunya is so tantalizing. Oh, please give me. That's why you have stories from our tradition that talk about people who are, destined to be killed, or that were going to be punished. And then Shaitan appears to them and says, well, just, do this and pledge your allegiance to me, and I will guarantee you. And then they'll come and of course, Shaitan will not be for them. Shaitan will never care about them. Shaitan only wants their demise. And the day of judgment, the person will come and say, well, where are you now? He said, who told you to worship me? Who told you to follow me? Right?
Yeah, when they're burning in hell, yeah.
Of course. And so, we as a community, this is not, and I hope what people appreciate, that this is not conspiratorial. Like, we understand full well that there is evil in this world, and people who desire evil, and there are forces of evil, and they want purely to see death and destruction and harm and suffering of others. And so, and it's not just all physical. It's spirit.
So we lost Sheikh Yasir. I think this is the second time this has happened. I think I need to get him a new internet connection. Don't know what's happening out there in New Jersey, or those satanic forces were not happy that we were discussing them. But, the reality is, as Sheikh Yasir was mentioning, the music that's out there, what we see in media, what we see on Netflix, what we see in the movies, it's all paving the way that when a satanistic temple is built, it's no big deal because people have been prepped for it. But the beauty is that we know is that we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that we are a believing community that brings light to this earth by bringing the nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala everywhere we go. So being someone who submits to God during these times is a badge of honor. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the most gentle of ways, make us his ibad. Another topic I wanted to bring up, an article on Democracy Now! About Mehdi Hasan. Mehdi Hasan, I think, is a genius. This man is a really incredible asset to humanity as a whole, and especially to the Muslim community. I had the honor of actually interviewing him one time. So he recently resigned from MSNBC. So here's an article brought up by Democracy Now! MSNBC host Mehdi Hasan has resigns after his show is canceled. The acclaimed TV broadcaster Mehdi Hasan has announced he is leaving MSNBC after his show was canceled. Hasan was one of the most prominent Muslim voices on American television. In October, the news outlet, Semaphore reported MSNBC had reduced the roles of Mehdi Hasan following the October 7th attacks on Israel. And then in November, it announced it was canceling Hasan's show shortly after he conducted this interview with Mark Regev, an advisor to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And then you see the article. I mean, you know, Mehdi held Regav's feet to the fire, and Mehdi does that with anyone that he comes across. He wrote a great book, How to Win Every Argument. And so, you know, my advice to Mehdi is, Mehdi, don't go back to mainstream media. Don't work for any one of these major corporations. You need to have your own show. I mean, if a goofball like Ben Shapiro, who's zero personality, can amass a humongous following on YouTube, having his own show and having his own Daily Wire, and you've got Tucker Carlson out there on X with his own show, Mehdi needs to have his own show. And the Muslim community needs to think in this realm. We need to think about investing in individuals such as Mehdi Hasan to ensure that they're independent and that they can speak with conviction and articulation about the topics that we care about the most. Mehdi is an asset for the whole community, so I hope he doesn't go back and work for any one of these major corporations. I hope he does his own thing, and he should be completely supported. There was actually, for those of you that don't know, Mehdi did an interview with Dawkins. Let me try pulling this up. Yeah, if you just go to YouTube, Sajjad, if you open up YouTube, you can open up live and we can look at it together. And you do just Google or YouTube search Dawkins Mehdi Hasan. It was done about 4 years ago. And let's see, I'm only seeing some clips of it. Where's the full thing? Yeah, do you see the whole thing? Do you find the whole thing there? Yeah, 47 minutes. I mean, you know, you can just cut. Yeah, cut halfway in.
That anything doesn't exist. But I'm an atheist in the same way as I'm an a-leprechaunist and an a-fairyist and an a-pink unicornist.
So you're not 100% sure God doesn't exist, but you're sure enough to make it practically.
I'm as sure as you are sure that fairies and leprechauns don't exist.
And do you see an equivalence between the idea of God and the idea of a fairy and a leprechaun?
The evidence for both is equally poor.
You say in The God Delusion, one of my favorite sentences.
The longer interview. I recommend everyone watches this interview to learn how to deal with individuals such as Dawkins and such as Sam Harris that are out there. Mehdi does a fantastic job in this interview. Another person that we should all be following as well is Firas Zahabi, who I'm going to be having an interview with. Firas Zahabi, many of you know, is one of the top MMA coaches out there. He was the coach of GSP, but he's also into philosophy, and he does a great job in defending Islamic theology. He's he's the owner actually of TriStar Gym. He has a page on YouTube. I think it's called TriStar Gym. Just look him up, Firas, F-R-A-S, Zahabi. He is a great resource. Yeah, there he is, Coach Firas, mashallah. Another, you know, intellectual, big-hearted individual who can really benefit the Muslim community. Yep. So we're going to have him, inshallah, here as well. So Mehdi, if you're listening to this, do your own thing. The Muslim community has your back. We're here with you. And inshallah, Allah gives you nothing but good in the path forward. That's going to be a wrap for today. Remember, these conversations primarily are going to be Shaykh Yasir and I and other individuals looking at so many different topics of life from a spiritual lens. The Muslim community is steeped in the beauty of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So we're going to look at everything that's happening day in, day out, and how do we understand it, and what should our views be as a believing community. And so we're going to do this, inshallah, together. And I will speak to you all again next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.